Supergirl showed up already buried under a pile of noise that really didn't have anything to do with the movie itself. When I told someone that I had a lot to say about the movie, the immediate response from that person was, "Chud opinion?" And that exchange alone tells you how far gone this conversation already was before most people had even seen the film. I'm not dissing that commenter, but let's be honest here, this movie is a very hot-button political issue at the minute, which, when you actually watch the movie, sounds really stupid. Now, a lot of this actually dates all the way back to 2025 when James Gunn made some comments about how Superman is the story of an immigrant, and so you had Fox News saying that the movie was woke garbage nonsense, and it was this whole thing. Fast forward to today, and before Supergirl even had a release date, commentators on the right had already decided that the trafficking plot, which was borrowed from the comic book Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, was Hollywood's coded jab at Donald Trump and the political right, while a loud wing of fans still loyal to Zack Snyder's version of these characters spent their energy trying to prove that the DCU was dead on arrival no matter what actually showed up on screen. Actress Millie Alcock caught real harassment over her looks, and an offhanded comment that she made about her character's sexuality spurred even more harassment. Harassment that colleagues and even Helen Slater, who played Supergirl back in 1984, publicly pushed back against. None of that has much bearing on whether the movie works. So, here's my review. Graded on its own terms. No culture war nonsense, no bias whatsoever. And if you're familiar with my channel, you might be saying, well, surely you must be a little biased. I mean, you are one of the biggest defenders of the DCU. I mean, my biggest videos are defending James Gunn from the Snyder fans. And to that I say, I see where you're coming from. However, I was rather negative towards Peacemaker. I found season 2 to be very meh. And I've been very open and honest about what doesn't work with this cinematic universe in its infant stages. And here, I have a lot of negative things to say, unfortunately. Don't get me wrong, I really wanted to like this movie. I came in with an open mind. I wasn't expecting it to be something that it wasn't, and I was so disappointed. Millie Alcock is the best reason to watch this movie. She plays Kara as someone who is truly wrecked by what happened to her, a woman coping badly with survivor's guilt and drinking her way through it. I think that choice gives the character a lot of substance. The CW's Supergirl show treated Kara as Clark Kent with a ponytail, upbeat and eager the same way that her cousin is, but Alcock's version carries damage that we see in Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, the comic book. It makes her feel like she is her own person, who is separate from just being Superman's cousin in a skirt. Jason Momoa is very clearly having a blast as Lobo, and every scene he shows up in picks up energy that the rest of the movie is missing. He plays the character as filthy, unpredictable, and legitimately funny. I wanted a lot more screen time with him than what the film was willing to give. Seriously, he was great. He stole the show. But the biggest jolt of energy in the whole movie came whenever David Corenswet showed up as Superman. His scenes lift everything around them. And it's a little damning that a movie called Supergirl works best whenever Superman is the one on screen. But it's just the truth of what got made here. This guy was born to play Superman, full stop. Unfortunately, the good stuff stops there. It's a short list because almost everything else in Supergirl 2026 is fundamentally broken. The editing is some of the worst I have ever seen in a modern blockbuster. Here's an example. There's a scene where Ruthie jumps between two rooftops. It could have easily been played as one clean shot, and the film decides to chop it up into several cuts within the span of a couple seconds for no reason. Another example, the trailer teased a moment where Supergirl grabs a chain and takes out a group of pirates in one fluid motion. And in the finished film, that same beat flies by so fast, there's no setup and barely any impact. She just kind of grabs the chain and starts moving it, and you're like, oh, I guess this is happening now. This is the scene from the trailer. This isn't hyperbole. I don't think a single shot in this movie holds for longer than 10 seconds. And somehow the pacing ends up feeling frantic and also sluggish at the same time, chopped into a blur of cuts scene to scene while whole sequences still manage to drag because so much time is wasted on comedic bits that never earn their place. Time that could have actually gone toward building these characters into something substantial. Again, another example is this moment where Ruthie is sneaking through the space pirates kind of spaceship lair thing, and she sees her family's sword, she goes to grab it, and then a space pirate walks in and takes a leak. And the scene just drags on for way too long. You honestly could have cut it where she's crawling through the vent, sees the sword, cut to the next scene. Right then and there, you could have cut 2 minutes from the movie. Instead, we get this long, drawn-out moment that really doesn't go anywhere. It didn't even get me to, like, exhale through my nose. It was just a lackluster comedic beat. As a side note, too, this movie has a lot of piss scenes. Krypto pisses on a newspaper with Superman's face on it. There's a scene where Kara is peeing and Ruthie is trying to recruit her, and then, like I mentioned, the scene with the space pirate where he's peeing and Ruthie is trying to grab the sword while he's using the bathroom. Just an observation, but it's a very tired joke that it seems the movie relies way too heavily on. I just wish that more time was spent on actually developing the characters. This seems like such a mess in the editing room, and some of that makes sense when you consider how chaotic the post-production process for Supergirl actually was. Roughly 25 minutes came out of the finished cut. The scene order got rearranged more than once, and the ending was reportedly rewritten 3 separate times before release. The original score, composed by Tom Holkenborg under his Junkie XL name, got thrown out entirely and was replaced with new music from Claudia Sarn, and even her replacement work went through 3 more rounds of changes that director Craig Gillespie pushed back against. A movie edited and rescored that many times by committee is going to feel exactly like this one does. It's disjointed and over-tinkered and allergic to just letting a scene breathe. It shows most in some of the needle drops that happen, especially the acoustic cover of The Middle by Jimmy Eat World. My god, this scene has been memed to death all over social media. The scene just gets dropped into the movie with zero setup or context or emotional runway. If that song had been planted earlier on in the film and then paid off again at the climax, it might have meant something. But as it plays here, it just shows up because a needle drop needed to go somewhere in the final battle, and it lands with little to no significance behind it at all. So how could this have worked? Because frankly, I don't think the song itself is all that bad. It's a boring white girl acoustic cover of a pop punk song from the 2000s, but I do think in context it could have worked, and here's sort of my rewrite. Maybe in the scene where Supergirl is adjusting to Earth and she's hanging out with Clark Kent, or at least around her cousin more, he, being someone who loves punk music, is like, hey, listen to this band, Jimmy Eat World, and you can kind of have a joke because they're a pop punk band and not really punk. It would play into his characterization from the 2025 film where he likes the Mighty Crabjoys, which is supposed to be more of a pop band than a punk band. Regardless, you could have him play the original studio version of The Middle by Jimmy Eat World, and maybe they have an argument, or there's some kind of significance where that is tied into her character arc. Then, during the final battle, when that song plays, it would hit harder because it's almost like, oh, this is coming full circle now, and she is overcoming the guilt that she felt about Krypton falling, or what have you. Whatever her arc is supposed to be in this movie, you can use that song to kind of add a sense of closure to it. Instead, they just play the song and then they move on to the next scene, and it is really bad. Kara's arc from a barely functioning alcoholic to someone with her life together by the end of the movie happens with almost no visible work behind it. She is a mess for the majority of the runtime, and then she's just fine. The movie never shows the turn when that happens. It just asserts that the turn happened somewhere because the story needed her to be healed by the credits. I'm not asking for a smiling friends, bing scene where she just smiles and then is cured of everything. But At least give me something here. Kara and Ruthie never really connect on screen either. They really don't have chemistry. I don't think either actress even smiled at the other one once in the entire runtime of the film. The effect is two flat, boring characters going through the motions of an adventure because the plot required them to be there together. Honestly, the movie I actually wanted was a Supergirl Lobo buddy cop picture. Those two characters would have bounced off each other so well, and there is an obvious version of Kara's arc buried in that idea. Maybe she sees her own worst instincts mirrored in Lobo's self-destruction, and getting clean for her becomes about refusing to end up like him. It gives her an actual reason to get sober, a reason the finished film never really bothers to provide. The Woman of Tomorrow comic by Bilquis Evely and former CIA officer Tom King is one of the more vividly colored, painterly runs DC has published in years. And somehow the filmmakers took that and drained it into a muddy, desaturated palette that looks like a leftover Zack Snyder movie at points. The comic also wears its True Grit influence openly, which is part of why I love it, since True Grit is one of my all-time favorite films, period. The movie leans on that same influence so heavily and so literally that it stops feeling like an homage, and by the midpoint, I just wanted to leave the theater and go rewatch the Coen Brothers movie. I don't have a problem whatsoever with the comic book taking inspiration from True Grit. That is one medium taking inspiration from something from another medium. Think about, I don't know, Red Dead Redemption. This might work because it's Western adjacent, but Red Dead Redemption takes inspiration from a lot of spaghetti westerns, John Wayne movies, pretty much all the classic cowboy flicks from back in the day. It's great because it's a video game, so you feel like you're emulating a lot of that storytelling without outright plagiarizing it. That's not a problem. What would be a problem is if you were to make a Red Dead Redemption movie, because we kind of already have that. It's every spaghetti western or every John Wayne movie or really anything from the western genre. To me, I feel the same way about Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. When you make that comic into a movie, you're just making True Grit but with Supergirl. And it pains me to say it, but it just doesn't work. Speaking of, the ending is where the adaptation fails the hardest. In the original series, Krem is broken and remorseful after centuries of being imprisoned in the Phantom Zone, and an elderly Ruthie finally gets her long-awaited shot at revenge, and she turns it down, striking him once across the nose with her cane and simply walking away. The movie flips that completely. Kara talks Ruthie out of killing Krem, and then just executes him herself. It's a beat that guts the whole theme the source comic was built around. Kara lectures a traumatized kid about what revenge does to a person in one scene, and then carries out an execution herself not much later because she's apparently old enough and bitter enough to carry that weight. Krem gets flattened by the change too. He's a tragic, complicated figure on the page, but on the screen, he's just a generic villain who's reminiscent of something from the first phase of the MCU. It's a loss no matter how you feel about the ending itself. Strip away the performances and Supergirl is a badly written, badly shot, badly cut movie, and I was bored. I think being bored by a blockbuster like this is about the worst verdict that I can hand it. Alcock, Momoa, Corrin Sweat keep it watchable in spite of everything working against them, and that is a real achievement given the material, but it just doesn't add up to a good movie by any means. I don't think this movie is the death sentence for the DCU that a lot of people want it to be. I'm sure Peacemaker Season 2 had a very disappointing finale, but Clayface still looks like a genuine hit waiting to happen. Man of Tomorrow has a very real shot if the marketing does its job, and I'm honestly excited for Lanterns. I'm like one of the 3 people on Earth that thinks that show might be pretty good. Supergirl just leaves a bad taste on its own terms. A movie that feels like leftover Phase 4 MCU slop wearing Gunn's DCU branding. It's a long way from the interesting, auteur-driven filmmaking that this era of DC was supposed to deliver. And on that note, I'm Cole McCormick. You're watching Firewood Media. If you liked what I had to say here and want to see more, consider subscribing or alternatively becoming a channel member. For $1.99 a month, you can get early access to select videos, as well as access to our members-only videos and the Discord server. Thank you all so much for watching. In case it's not abundantly clear, this is a brand new setup for me. I am officially moved into my house. I am so happy, but this room is a complete shit show at the minute. I know there's boxes here and wires exposed and whatever. So in the meantime, I apologize, but this is just going to be what it's like for now. Hopefully this looks a lot better as time goes on. I still have a lot more to unpack, and I made the genius decision to keep all of my boxes just in this room, the room that I film in. I don't know what I was thinking. I also have new lighting here, so we'll see how this looks in the finished product. Might be a bit too intense with it coming on me. Pause, that sounds bad. But I'm going to figure that out more as we go along. This is just a little trial video. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.